Well, all right. Somewhere, Chris Sims is pounding a table saying, see, I told you this guy should be the number 2 overall quarterback. And, well, just because you were drafted number 2 overall does not, of course, mean you will be the number 2 overall quarterback. There is a lot to like about Jayden Daniels, a lot of reason to believe he could be an elite level prospect or just a very good prospect. There are some criticisms. There certainly are. I was someone who was a bit lower on Daniels than the rest, but again, I'm not so arrogant in my own evaluations that I'm going to sit here and say that I would, that I know all and I'm going to, criticize them harshly or anything. No, there's a lot of reason to be excited. If I was a Washington fan, I'd be very pumped up right now. So yeah, I'm going to get into Daniels as a player, the decision to go with Daniels over Drake May, and what it means for Washington. Real quick though, just to get a couple plugs out of the way. Hey, thanks for checking out this video. Going to make videos like this all night long for the draft, so make sure you're subscribed to this channel. Would appreciate it. Also, if you like movies, check out my movie channel. Link is in the description for that. Trying to get that off the ground. So yeah, check out all that good stuff. But anyway, Jayden Daniels is now a Washington Commander. And listen, there's so much to like about Daniels' game. I mean, the guy is an unbelievable athlete, and his arm talent's really good. He is someone who I thought that at LSU would take a lot of chances. And I don't mean that in a good way or bad way. I just mean that that's in a play style way. He would allow his receivers to have a chance to go up and make the play. And a lot of times it worked because he played at LSU. And that's where the weird thing comes in a little bit of, I think some people might sit here and say, well, isn't that a concern? A lot of the receivers at LSU were really good. He would throw up the ball hoping the LSU players would go up and make the grab. They were able to do it. Will that work in the NFL as consistently? Well, at the same time, it's like, well, Daniels' job was to win games in college. And so I'm not going to assume he's going to play the exact same way, if it's not working as well. He will change up his game if he has to. That's part of the interesting thing about going from college to the NFL. It is so different. A lot of these guys are projections. I mean, they're all projections. There's no such thing as a perfect quarterback. Caleb Williams could be a bust. Daniels could be a Hall of Famer. Like, we don't know, right? Again, like I said, I did have some critiques with Daniels' game. Some of it is just like physical stuff. He is a bit on the skinny side at 6'4", 210. And one thing he's just going to have to learn at the NFL level is he's going to have to not take these big hits. He would get crushed out there in college. He's going to have to get that out of his game, I think. And again, that's a coachable thing, right? And I think some of the, he makes some sort of these weird reads sometimes. Those are kind of, I had some other nitpicks. If you want to check out my film study on Daniels, you can. It's on this channel. Just search Jackson Kruger Sports. It'll come up. But there was no critique I had in Daniels' game that made me feel like he is a bad prospect or that he can't fix those issues. And to be honest, while I'm saying there's these issues, it's not like he has a ton of issues compared to like some other players or anything. And I certainly think that, let's talk about Drake May versus Daniels. You make the comparison. I do think that there's a very high likelihood Daniels could be the better day one quarterback. I think that May has kind of the, let's just be honest. He's a bigger guy, not in terms of height. They're both listed at 6'4", but in terms of weight, kind of has a lot of muscle on him, also very athletic, and it's kind of just more of the prototypical athlete, also is a couple years younger, so there's kind of that, like, hey, we can mold this guy into a Justin Herbert easier than you can a Jayden Daniels. At least you can talk yourself into it, right? He feels like he has the higher ceiling, but guys don't always reach their ceiling. They just don't, and there's no denying that there's way more issues on Drake May's tape, especially way more mental mistakes on Drake May's tape than Daniels. And, I haven't talked to either of these guys. I don't know what's going on in the meeting rooms. And so if someone like Drake May is kind of not giving great answers to some of these questions and Daniels is giving great answers, like, I can totally see why even someone like me who maybe felt like I would have gone with Drake May could be swayed for Daniels. So I do understand it. I think it's a very exciting move. And for the Commanders, I actually think the Commanders could be better than people realize next year if Daniels does in fact hit, right? Because, the offensive line got talked about as such an issue last year. I watched a lot of film. I'm not saying it wasn't an issue. I'm certainly not saying that. But how many plays was Sam Howell just holding on to the ball for 10 seconds and that caused like a sack or a pressure? And, I think the receiving core is good. I think it's not like there's some really good players on there. Terry McLaurin's one of the real underrated players in football. Maybe it sometimes doesn't always amount to what you hope it amounts to, but it's still a good receiving core. And I think the offensive line could look a lot better with someone like Daniels, not just because he won't hold on to the ball for as long as Howell did, but also he can make guys miss. He's certainly capable of that, and he absolutely will make the highlight reel level plays, which is what I think gets you excited. And, one thing I said about, hey, he knows when to give his players chances. He'll throw the ball up there and see if things work out. I mean, you can't tell me Terry McLaurin isn't going to love that. You can't tell me he's not going to, take advantage of that when the ball comes his way. I certainly think this could be a real positive for, and a nice fit as well, which that's another thing, right? You can sit here and say, like, well, which quarterback is better? Well, they're not going to a neutral situation. They're going to the Commanders' situation. And I do wonder, to some degree, if, Dan Quinn and the Washington Commanders view him as a guy who can kind of work in that system a little bit better than someone like Drake May can. I actually don't even disagree with that. So, yeah, there's a lot to like about Daniels' game. Now, the one thing I think you could maybe be concerned about. So I think the offense is okay. You always want to have as good of an offense as possible, right? The history of the NFL shows that if you put a quarterback in a bad situation to succeed, they usually don't succeed. There are exceptions, but that's usually what happens. I think the offense is a good enough situation that I wouldn't be overly concerned about like any of that. The defense is a little bit, let's be honest, the back half of last year, it was atrocious. It was so bad. And well, I think a lot of people, when they view quarterback development, they only think of the offensive side of the ball. I think it's fair to have a little bit of concerns about, like, okay, and I think the defense could be better. I think that part of that was coaching. I think getting a new regime in there and everything could make it better. But you don't want him to be in a situation where he feels like he has to score on every possession and then he takes more chances and makes more mistakes, right? That is part of quarterback development as well. So I think the defense could be better, and, we'll see what the Commanders do in the rest of this draft, of course, as well. But that's just something to maybe keep an eye out for on top, on the quarterback development stuff. But yeah, I mean, all attention now goes to, they got to develop Jayden Daniels. They got to get him to be, put him in as good of a position to succeed as possible. And so we'll see how they do that. But I definitely think he's a really interesting prospect, and I think that, he's a really exciting time in Washington. So yeah, those are my thoughts on Daniels and what he brings to the, Commanders. I know it's going to be a controversial pick. So what do you guys think? Let me know in the comments below. Always love hearing from y'all. And of course, as always, thanks for watching.